Hey everyone, this is Jake with X Garage. Just wanted to say some quick words regarding the finale for The Good Place. What an interesting show that was. So if you haven't watched it and you're planning on doing it, get out of here because I'm definitely talking spoilers. So just to recap, again, this is a show about people that died, went to the afterlife. They thought they were in the good place, hence the name. And come to find out they actually were in the bad place being tormented psychologically. Throughout the story, they become the protagonists that try to save all of humanity from ending up in the bad place. At one point, the judge decides, the eternal judge, who is not God, decides to send or to destroy all of humanity, and so they're the ones trying to devise a new afterlife that would be fair and equal and would give more people a chance to enter into the good place. There's so much there that I would love to talk about. But I want to focus on the last bits there because when they eventually do get to the good place, they devise a system that lets everybody eventually get to the good place. The way that they give it meaning, catch this, they give it meaning by putting an expiration date on your experience of the good place. Now, you get to choose when you walk through the door that evaporates you into it evaporates your essence into the rest of the universe, and you return from whence you came. But given that it's eternal, eventually you will walk through that door and be evaporated. This is a very interesting way, and I think it falls in line with how they've been presenting the afterlife to be. There is no ultimate being that we are to adore and center our existence around. That makes the self the center. So when the self is the center, no matter in what situation, whether it's well, it seems like from the beginning of the show to the end of the show, they move from one kind of hedonism, which they label as an unrighteous life, and they move it to another kind of hedonism, which they say is the more selfless life. But it's still hedonism because they are ultimately deriving pleasure for the self and to the self and of the self. And I think eventually hedonism will always collapse in on itself. And the way that it expressed itself in the show was that eventually you will commit suicide, eternal suicide, which is mind-blowing to me. I'm so surprised they went there. I thought it was a more interesting ending than everybody just living off happily ever after, given the premise. But it's incredibly depressing and sad. And I think a lot of people are going to resonate with this show, and I find it very interesting. There's just so much to talk about this show, and I find it incredibly fascinating. But I'll leave it to say, if you are not centering your life around the Creator, and as a creation, rejecting where you came from, then you're never actually going to be there. It's impossible to be at peace now and for eternity. And that's not to say that we don't struggle in this life, even in Christ. But if that's how we're made, then that's the only way that we're going to be actually fully human, is in Him. So anyway, I just thought I would give some brief thoughts on that, having just seen it, because I am fascinated by the direction they took and how, to me, seems very consistent with the self-centered motives of the show. And there's no way to get around that if there is no ultimate core, or there is no ultimate being. It's just the impersonal universe. They never got away from that. The impersonal universe that will still have a heat death, and individuals that may or may not be timeless or eternal, but are still confined to the reality of the universe. Interesting show. I do recommend it. It is not biblical by any means, but it is very telling, I think, of the world that we live in the mind of people nowadays. So anyway, I hope you have a wonderful night, and God bless.